making sure that you have space for that creative energy too, because if you go into it just like strictly like goals and this and that and like super rigid, then you're gonna get burnt out fast.
Welcome back to Duo On Air. I'm Abby.
And I'm Courtney.
And we're the ex-agency turned entrepreneurial team that puts the Duo in Duo Collective. Our boutique organic marketing agency specializes in SEO, social media strategy, and branding.
We're an everyday pair of business besties / marketing experts obsessed with helping our community learn more about what it takes to run a business.
Which is why on Duo On Air, we're not holding anything back. We're giving you all the info we know about how to grow your business organically so you can be the confident CEO you were made to be.
And how to navigate life as a small business owner.
Whether it's on your own or with your best friend by your side, so grab your coffee
or your mimosa, we don't judge.
And settle in for a quick value-packed episode of Marketing Tips.
Welcome back to the Duo On Air podcast. This is episode number 141, and today we can't wait to share a little behind the scenes look at our annual planning meeting for Duo. So we did this from this air date that you'll be hearing this. We did this a couple weeks ago at the beginning of October, end of September, beginning of October, like right when October hit. And it's kind of the first time that we've really put aside time specifically to talk about how we want to plan the next year for Duo. So we've done this in the past where we have our little holiday party and we're like, okay, we're going to have our holiday party with our hubbies. We're going to talk about our plan for Duo, and then we're going to go back to having a party and having fun. And we actually fail to talk about Duo. And so this year we were like, we have to sit down and do this. There's been a lot of shifts in Duo. We needed to sit down and like really plan out what we wanted for 2025 personally from a business perspective. And so that's what we did. And you guys have seen it in your inbox. We've talked about it a little bit. So here we are today, and we're going to talk about it on the podcast. So we're really excited. A bit about how we kind of planned this is we decided that this meeting had to be somewhere else. Like we couldn't do it at each other's houses. We just needed to get out into a creative space and step out of our day-to-day life. So part of the planning at the very beginning was finding a place to stay. And I think the biggest thing was, do we want to be in the city 20 minutes away from our house, or did we want to go somewhere where we like traveled to a cabin and we were there for a couple of days, a couple hours away? We ultimately decided to keep it close. I think that was a good decision, especially for our first year, because if we would have spent time driving, I don't know if that would have been beneficial for us. So it just takes a little bit more time out of that planning session. I think we could have definitely talked business in the car, but I think it was good for us to be close to home, especially for this first one, to kind of test it out and see how things went. So we
It's
had
definitely a little bit of a budget thing too, of like figuring out like, okay, how much do we want to spend on this? Because we could go crazy, get like the super awesome cabin in the woods and have like the perfect fall weekend, and it ended up being really good because we forgot a few things.
We did forget a few things. Oh my gosh, we should put that photo in the show notes.
We'll put it in the show notes. But we got to the Airbnb, checked in, got all our stuff there, and then we were like, where's the big sticky notes that we ordered?
Because we wanted to get everything on paper versus like digitally taking notes. So we went like back to our old school agency days and bought those giant sticky notes, and we were so excited to write on those. And we get inside the Airbnb and I'm unpacking everything and I'm like, okay, Abby, I think we got it all. And I'm like, where are the sticky notes? I'm like, they're in your vehicle. They got to be in your vehicle. So we go back out to our car and they're not there. And she's like, did you leave them at home? Like, are you sure you even brought them? I'm like, Abby, I took them out of my car. Like, I know I took them out of my car. And she's like, but maybe you didn't, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I did. So we come back to Abby's house, which again is only like 20 minutes from where we're staying. They are sitting on the top of my, like on the trunk of my car, outside, like on the trunk, and just like hanging out there blowing in the wind. So that was probably like, one of two things. I had a smash cake for Abby and I. We were going to do a smash cake, and we couldn't check it into our Airbnb until 3, I think. Yeah. So the cake was in the car, and I wanted to surprise Abby with it, so I didn't tell her about it, which is probably a fail because then like we didn't put it in anything cold. And Yeah, it was pretty melty. So
it tasted good. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Yeah.
That's it. But yeah, it was nice. I think it was actually like being close to home, just with other family stuff popping up. Like if anything were to happen where we had to like step into our mom roles, like we didn't have to, but we at least had peace of mind knowing that like it's going to be okay. We're close to home. That didn't need to be an extra stressor on top of it. So it was good. We're glad that we stayed here, didn't do some bougie cabin out in the woods. And it was, and we used to work downtown.
Yeah.
That's where we used to do the early days of our business anyways, like on those coffee walks. So it was kind of fun just to be downtown again.
Yeah, it was kind of like a blast from the past, like a flashback. We could walk the skyways or go to places we've been downtown when we worked together back then. So
it was fun.
Yeah, it worked out really great. And I think like planning... so I took a lot of the planning because this is my jam. Like I love these kinds of things. So I was like, okay, Abby, give me a budget. So she gave me a budget and I had to respect
given you a better budget.
But I don't think I went crazy. I had Costa Rica tickets on the list and scratched those off.
They
just kidding. But yeah, so the planning was super fun. I think the biggest thing for me, I wanted to make sure we had enough time set aside to be creative and have that space and energy to like think outside of the box, but also really get down to like the nitty gritty of things that we had to do as far as like goal planning and looking at our future and what that looks like. So finding that sweet balance between those two, I was a little nervous about, but I think we did pretty good. And then making sure that we stayed on schedule, because it's like, we have so many hours set aside for this and so many hours set aside for that. And we got off schedule a little bit and things tweaked a little bit as we like got into it, but we did really well at staying on pace with like everything that we needed to get through. And then I just wanted to make sure it was fun. The whole time I was sitting there, I was like, Abby, are you having fun? Is this good? Did I do okay? And I'm like, I'm going to send out an anonymous survey after this that you have to fill out. So dumb. But
I'm still waiting for that survey.
Okay, yeah, I'll get that to you. I'm sorry. But yeah, it was really fun. So I think we're going to dive into the details of it a little bit more here.
Yeah, we sent out an email to our list too, just kind of asking like, hey, have people done this? Are you interested in doing this? I think there was a lot of appetite for people just like wanting to either have a meeting like this, or if they have, maybe it hasn't been as structured. So we wanted to share a few things, one being an agenda template, because Courtney crushed it with the agenda, and I think there's so many fun details in there that you can kind of copy and use for your own business. And we talked a little bit about how like it probably feels, if you're a solo entrepreneur, it might feel a little hard to envision doing this meeting. So we want to make sure that regardless of whether you have a 1-person team, a 10-person team, or a 2-person team, like this is absolutely something that you can and should do. And if you are a 1-person team, maybe there's another business partner you can partner up with where you share the agenda and you have this time together. Or maybe you do just take a little solo vacation, and if you have a structured agenda, that's going to help you stay on track so much more. So I think there's definitely options of things to do. And if you have a team, this is something too where we do have people that support us, and we do want to do another one of these kind of meetings with our full team. We just truly felt like we needed, as the owners, to like have this moment to have some clarity just from a leadership standpoint before we actually talked with our full team.
Yeah, we have to make sure that we know what the F we're doing before we talk to them.
But we'll share when we do that next spring. Like we'll share all the details behind how that was different than this. But we kind of just wanted to share, one, why we're doing this, how you can plan a successful meeting, some things we love, some things we do different, and obviously share the agenda template with you guys so that you can kind of steal this and use it for yourself. So we'll put all of that in the show notes. But let's kind of talk first about why we do this, or why we decided to do this. I think we've wanted to do this for years, like
ever since we started.
At this capacity, we wanted to do it for years. And we just haven't, because we haven't prioritized it.
No.
Like, honestly, that's what it is. We just always feel like we can squeeze it into something else. Right. It's never taken the full priority. And it was even like a couple days before life was crazy, and Courtney was like, do you still want to do this?
I literally asked Abby that. I was like, I know that there's a lot on our plates right now from a business and personal standpoint. And like, I could feel some stress in Abby's voice when we would just talk about just life. And I was like, if we need to move this to like help your anxiety, we absolutely can do this. And I think Abby came back with like, life is always going to be crazy. Yeah. Absolutely not. We can't move this. Like the point of this is because we've done this in the past. We've moved it or we've squeezed it in somewhere. And I'm really glad that we didn't move it. Like it was a crazy week. It's still a few crazy weeks coming up, but we left feeling so clear. Like we had so much clarity. And that's our number one point on like, why do this? Like why have this meeting every year and talk about these things? And clarity, I would say, is like the number one reason that you should be doing this. Clarity on like your brand strategy, clarity on where you want to go in the next year, clarity on your goals, clarity on finances, your services, your boundaries, like even down to things like we talked about our boundaries that we wanted within our business and our personal lives. And it brings so much clarity to all of this. When you sit down and you have this open dialogue and you actually write these things down and take note of these things, pen to paper, like we did pen to paper, because I think that stuck with us a little bit more than typing everything out. We're always on our computers typing out notes every single day. But when we took that pen to paper and we actually wrote it down, it felt like we were actually like putting a stake in the ground. Like this is my, this is where we want to go. And this is my boundary for this year. And I think it just provided so much clarity. We came out of it feeling so good and I think so refreshed and like, wow, we've never had this much clarity within our business or our personal lives the 5 years that we've been working together.
Yeah. And plus when you're on your computer, I mean, I have 1,000 tabs open. Like it's so hard to stay focused. So it really did help to kind of write things out, get off our computer, give your brain that room to breathe. So that was super important. We also, which we'll talk about this a little bit, we ended up, it's basically having this meeting as a chance to make sure that you have a really strong foundation. And we spent a lot of time refining our brand strategy. And that is ultimately what brought a lot of clarity for us. We also made sure that we talked not only about business goals, but personal goals too, and where we want to be as individuals, because that's why we started this business at the end of the day. It wasn't just to have work, it was to enhance our lives in ways. So that was super important for us too. So, so yeah, and another reason too, and I think one of my favorite parts about the fact that we did this meeting when we did it, so in early October, I think it's so easy to leave this kind of a meeting feeling like you have so much to do, which we do. We do feel that way. But at the same time, it's October, and this is meant to be our 2025 plan.
Yes.
So if we do anything before 2025, that's considered working ahead.
It's like extra credit.
Yeah, which is like it's like such a blessing for the mind just to like have that breathing room to like actually do the work when you have the creative space to do it and when you're mentally there for it. So that was very, very helpful.
Yeah. And there was things on the list that we are like, oh, we could focus on these in 2024, but and then when 2025 comes around, let's start focusing on those. So not only is it like a little bit of extra credit, but there's low hanging fruit that we can go after right now. And then as 2025 rolls around, like start building on and executing those larger things. So it was really nice coming out of the meeting, like, oh, these are the things that we can do in 2024 to prep for 2025. And then as the new year begins, like we'll start diving into these bigger initiatives or whatever.
And I am beyond excited to compare next year. So I think the fact that we did this and we had this meeting, like there is never going to be a year where we won't do this again. Like it almost like built a tradition. And with that, we now have so much content to look back on and compare to and build on and like reflect. And I think without taking this time to actually write it down and talk through it, like the reflection next year is going to be so much more powerful than it was this year.
Exciting.
Probably.
Like it's going to be so fun to look back. Yeah.
I know.
So The next thing that we want to talk about are the tips to planning this successful meeting that we had. The first thing is making that agenda. I think that was one of the biggest things about this is sitting down and figuring out like, what are these things that we need to talk about and get through, and even little things like traveling, the grocery list. What are we going to eat? We had trash TV breaks, so we had to sit and like let our brain just be mush while we were watching trash reality TV. Mm-hmm. So it's things like that when you're making this agenda, is to make sure that we're talking these high level things, right? Like we're getting down to business. We're talking about our plan for the year, but we're also making space for that creative energy to flow too. So we did some exercises where it was like, we did, 5-minute brainstorms. And I was like, Abby, this is meant for like anything and everything. Yeah. You just throw out these wild, crazy ideas. And Abby loves these kinds of activities because she's like, what? And I'm like, just shout it. Doesn't even matter. Just shout it.
I'm a thinker. I think through my responses.
Yeah. And she had amazing things. And I was like, see, isn't this fun? And she got into it. And I actually think her list was longer than mine. So making sure that you have space for that creative energy too, because if you go into it just like strictly like goals and this and that and like super rigid, then you're going to get burnt out fast, right? Yeah. Because you can't just constantly be working and not having any fun weaved in. So making sure that you like weave in that fun, and woo-woo. We like to call it like the woo-woo stuff. I made sure that we did a few woo-woo things, but we missed a few of them. We wanted to burn some sage and like release bad energy and welcome good energy. Everywhere we went in our Airbnb is like, Abby saw no smoking signs everywhere, which is great, which is so great. But I'm like, we're going to start burning sage and set off a fire alarm.
You're set off a fire alarm and then we're going to get kicked
out. Yeah. So we still have yet to do that. Maybe we'll like put that on a reel one of these days.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah,
we also did, I think like making sure it wasn't all business. Like at the end of the day, we're friends and we want to talk about life and like all the other things going on. So I think that was also like, we didn't have to be strict with like business and life talk and all of that. So we definitely spent time, like at dinners or just taking hot tub breaks and just like really having conversations. So we did like at dinner one night, we were like, let's see if we can learn something new about each other.
That was fun. That was a really fun conversation.
So we basically like just asked each other random questions. Like I think we Googled like a list of
You found a good one.
Yeah, there was some good lists out there. So we Googled some lists of just like questions to ask each other, and it was funny. So that ended up being good. It was also like, I think almost like partnership building without being as corny.
It was. Yeah, it was so fun. Yeah. So another thing is just coming prepared. That's, again, like we make the agenda, we sprinkle in these fun moments, coming prepared. So we didn't really have a whole lot that we had to like quote unquote come prepared for, but a few things. So we knew that we wanted to get pen to paper. So we bought those big sticky notes that I left on the back of my car that we had to come get. But again, it got us out of our computer. Pre-planned meals, or like whether or not we were going to go out to eat. We probably went out to eat more than we did meals, but we did have a few like really quick things to just like throw in the microwave or whatever. If you want to spend time cooking, that's great, but we knew that we didn't want to spend a lot of time cooking if we were going to be doing the cooking. So we found Abby has some great Trader Joe's go-tos.
Yeah. And I made some like pumpkin.
Oh my gosh.
Overnight oats.
You need to link that recipe in here.
It was delicious. So like, yeah, it was just really nice having breakfast done, knowing we had like some quick meals for lunch, or we would have ordered. We just didn't want to order out for everything. And then also going out to dinner and just like having that too. So we went out to dinner both nights, had lunch we went out for lunch one day and then had a quick lunch the second day and then did the oatmeal, for breakfast. Which it was good. I think too, like there's just so many times where I waste brain cells on like what to wear, which one thing is nice because you're packing. So you've already thought that through. You've already used those brain cells. Like you have your stuff in your bag and then you're there. So it's not like you can really change your mind. So like, you don't have to think about that. You've already planned your groceries or your meals, or you know when you're eating out, and you've already planned that. So like, you're not wasting your brain cells on dumb things.
Yeah. Like once we were there, we were like ready to roll. We're like, okay, we know our lunch thing. We know our suppers, our breakfasts, whatever. We already have our suitcases. So we're just going to go with whatever's in there. So yeah, that really took a lot of like the thinking out of it. So we could really focus on what we needed to get done. Another thing, this was Abby's idea, which was really genius, is setting an out of office. So I'm sure all of you can relate. You find yourself in your inbox constantly, whether it's on your phone or on your computer. It's really hard to check out that long and not focus on checking your emails. But we knew that we could not be in our inbox doing that. And we knew that we had to let our clients or any new inquiries know that if they popped into our inbox, we saw them, we were going to get back to them, but it was going to be a couple days because we had to focus on us at the moment. So that was a really great idea. And I think it helped us to be okay with the idea of like, it's okay to step away from our inbox. Yeah. We don't have to be there because they know where we are and they know they're going to hear back from us in a few days.
Yeah. I think that's actually something we should make happen basically any time we're taking a vacation.
Yes.
Because it gives you the freedom to actually shut things down. Like sometimes I think, oh, I'm just gone for a couple days. I can check email if anything happens on my phone. But it's just like, it doesn't create this full level of relaxation because you haven't given yourself permission to take a break.
Yeah.
And so I think when you put an out of office on, it's like you fully admitting and giving yourself permission to take a break. And we are not heart surgeons. We are not saving lives. No. Like everything we do can wait. It's going to be okay if we need to take a break, whether it's for our business or for our personal life. So I think we should definitely do that. Like we both just had vacations recently. I had a couple days, you had a week, and neither of us put an office on.
It crossed my mind last week, and then do you think I did it?
Yeah. No. And it's just like, I think it just doesn't give you the full break that you're craving.
I agree.
So I think moving forward, that's something we need to do.
Yes, give yourself permission to do the out of office.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd say another thing for planning this meeting is to just have an open mind. This is something where, I mean, I'm not just talking about the woo-woo stuff. Like, of course, I'll have an open mind. But I also think it's like, give yourself permission to explore all avenues of business, even if they feel so out of reach, even if it feels like something you don't want to do. Like, what if you just gave yourself permission just to see it all the way through and see all the different ways that your business could spawn off into, variations of different things. So I think that's something, just really having an open mind, not putting restrictions and boundaries on your brainstorming and
or pressure, take the pressure off.
Yep. Yeah. And you can like take a step out of reality in this meeting. Like, you don't need to worry about like, oh, that's not feasible because like, no, just let your brain go to all these different places because anything is possible, but
no idea is a dumb idea.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely something that, we did, especially in there's little things like within our agenda too that help that, like the 5-minute brainstorm, like that got easier the more you did it, like the longer you were in it. And it was just like, there's no boundaries or guardrails or anything like that. So I think those kind of things are super important.
Yes, I agree. Another thing that we wanted to make sure that we touched on was just setting that time aside to reflect and celebrate your wins versus just forward thinking. So we had, we've got amazing wins under our belt that we don't actually sit down and celebrate, or like, we've talked about this on the podcast multiple times. We're awful at celebrating our wins. Like, we let them come and go, and we're like, oh,
better this year.
We have been better this year. But in the past, we were like, oh, cool. Yeah, that was like a fun thing. All right, back to business. And we have like consciously gotten better at that. And this year at this annual meeting, we wanted to make sure that we like sat down and talked about that too. So I made a list of like all the wins that I could think of that we had, and we sat there and talked about them and like gave ourselves a cheers and a pat on the back and like reflected on that moment. Because it's, again, like we always have that to-do list, but we never look at that to-done list, and we love talking about that because those are you have done a lot. Like, you might always be looking forward like, oh my gosh, we have so much to do, but you've actually done a lot too that you should reward yourself on. And when you look back at that, you're like, wow, like we did crush it, or we like did this thing that was so fun and we did so great. You need to pat yourself on the back every once in a while, because you have to be proud of yourself, because what's the point of this if you're not,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely like having that positive self-talk in a way.
Yeah.
Is like what's going to also give you that like extra oomph to think outside the box and think about what the new year could bring and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
So yeah, that was really important. And finally, I think like having this agenda is like the key underlying piece of having a really successful meeting. But at the same time, don't be afraid to go off of the agenda. This is something that happened to us on the second day. We were planning on just revisiting our brand strategy and foundation and taking a look to see if we needed anything to change. And it was clear that we did. Like, we needed it all to change or evolve.
I think I knew going into it we needed it to change and we needed to look at it, but I only set aside time to look at it because I thought, well, maybe we'll hire a copywriter in the future to like help us revamp this or whatever. And then Abby looked at me and she was just like, I think we should do this together today right here. And I was like, oh wow. I was like, I agree. I think that's awesome. Let's do it. And I said, we're gonna, and then I just like really quick looked at the agenda and I'm like, okay, we're gonna scratch this one thing or whatever, because I knew that we weren't going to have time for all of that. And it worked out. It was so like, I think that was the biggest clarity piece from this meeting. So like, thank you, Abby, for making us go off script.
Like in hindsight too, I think moving forward, that part, we should definitely, like, looking at your brand foundation is important to do every year. And that exercise is something that I think will get easier and easier. Like, we did a really good job of refining it this year, where I'd say in the past, we probably haven't done as in-depth of an exploration as we did this year. So I don't think it's going to take nearly as much time in the future, but it will still always be something that we gut check to make sure that that strategy is still solid for us. So it was a really good exercise, and one we talked about on the podcast recently, just talking about like defining your brand voice and really figuring that out, which is just one piece of that foundation. Right. But we really went deep into mission, vision, our core values, like what it is that we want to do, how we want to grow. So that was beyond helpful and did provide a lot of clarity. So yeah, we kind of tweaked the agenda. We felt fried after that. And so that was when we needed to like add in extra breaks and give ourselves some breathing room, which we did.
And go to the hot tub.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our next point of things that we loved that we did during our meeting. So the number one was the hot tub. When we were looking for a place, we were both like, okay, hot tub is a must. Like, we have to find a place that has a hot tub, whether it's a cabin, whether it's an Airbnb, whether it's a hotel, whatever. So I was like, okay, hot tub, definitely need that. So we found a place with a hot tub. It was perfect. We took a few hot tub breaks when we were like, okay, feeling a little burnt. Like, we got to go just like decompress and like.
I think next year we need hot tub and sauna.
Yeah, I like that. I do like that. Yes.
We also, this was in hindsight, we didn't know that we'd love this, but our Airbnb, like, the place was pretty small.
It was.
And we didn't really want to just like hang out in the room the whole time. I didn't feel like that would be one, it wouldn't help us relax at the end of the day.
No.
And two, I just don't think it would have brought the creativeness we needed.
And we had so many sticky notes.
Yeah, so many.
That place was not large enough for,
So there was a community room on the rooftop right next to the hot tub, and all like floor to ceiling windows, kitchen up there, and no one went up there.
No one. Because this is an apartment complex. Yeah. So I guess if you think about it, you know, if you were at a hotel, you'd probably have more people in there, right? But this was an apartment complex, so people live here. So they're either probably working in their apartment or at their jobs. And this was the middle of the week, so we had this whole room to ourselves.
It was amazing.
It was so amazing. Yeah, it was perfect.
We just like took over the walls with sticky notes. At one point, someone came up to like give a tour of the place, and I was like, "Ooh, sorry."
Yeah, they were probably just standing there in.
Also, like it's good seeing it be used.
Yes,
right?
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, that community room was amazing. And I definitely think, like, if we did an Airbnb again, especially in the city, we would absolutely make sure that there were multiple spaces in that building to give us that, like, flexibility too. Like, the rooftop was nice, so we went outside some days, and like, the worst part was the internet didn't work outside. But otherwise, we would have probably went out there more. But the windows were nice.
Yeah, it was great. It came in really well. Another thing that we loved is that we were in the city, and we were able to kind of venture out and explore our city. So like Abby said earlier, we worked downtown at the same capacity at the agency when we were together, and we know the city and we know the hot spots and places to go. So it was really just fun to like get out and walk around, be in the city, go out to eat at really good places, get good drinks, and just explore. Again, that brings out like some creative juices in you because you're in the city, you're getting inspired, you're getting fresh air, you're getting good food and drink, and it just helps again with kind of that creative flow of everything.
Yeah, there wasn't the stress of like being in a remote location
and not knowing anything.
Yeah, not knowing anything or having to go anywhere. So it was kind of nice just because we knew everything was going to be really close. There were so many options. The worst part was that it was early in the week. So like some places were closed on Mondays, which we didn't think that through. But I'd still do early in the week.
I would too. Because it was quiet. It was quiet in the city.
Nice. Yeah. And it was nice just to do it early in the week in general, just because I feel like from a business standpoint, like the end of the week always just feels a little bit more chaotic.
It does. So. And then you jump into your busy weekend. And
Yep. So another thing that we loved and that we definitely do again was all the little self-care moments. So Court got a lot of cute little goodies. We had matching PJs.
That were so soft. They were great. And then some face masks and some bath bombs. I actually bought the bath bombs from an SEO client of ours, Modern Roots. So it was just fun. Again, like supporting small businesses, pulling together these little like self-care packages, and then making sure that we took this time to like actually do some self-care and watch some
frownies.
Yeah, frownies. That was my first experience with frownies, and now I'm hooked.
Swapping skincare routines, just all the good stuff.
It was great. And then just cuddling in bed and watching
sharing a queen size bed,
trash TV,
watching Secret Life of Mormon Wives.
Yeah,
so
with cake in bed. We were eating our cake in bed.
I know. It was fun.
Oh, we also did a small yoga session.
Yes.
Abby picked it out, and oh my gosh, like I would say we did pretty good. We kept up with her pretty well, but wow, it was more intense than maybe like a soft yoga morning session.
Probably should have done a beginner.
Yep. one. And then the next 2 days, my abs hurt. The next day I woke up and I was a little worried, like why? I was like, Abby, why does my core hurt? And then I looked at her like, oh my gosh, that yoga session. So clearly your girl needs to work out more.
Yeah. But that was nice too. Like, we're both moms who have like busy routines in the morning. So like it was so nice to have that day to like wake up, eat some oatmeal, chill with our coffee, like sit there and talk, and then do a yoga session and then jump into it.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just like such a nice way to ease into the day.
It was.
Which I think you don't get unless you actually have an overnight.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that was necessary. And on that note, like 2 nights felt really good to us.
It did.
I think like the first day, like evening, we kind of started things in the afternoon. So like that day it felt pretty easy, just like planning, getting groceries. Like we did a couple things, but not a ton.
Right.
Then went out to eat, celebrating wins. Like it was just kind of an easy afternoon, evening. And then the next day was like our busiest day. And then being able to go out to dinner that night to decompress without having to like just go home at the end of that, I think would have felt really overwhelming. And then being able to like tie loose ends up on the last day. And we didn't talk about this, but we scheduled massages for the last day before we went home. We thought it might have been a couple's massage. It wasn't.
I was really
that
hoping
would have been great.
Like if I could have held Abby's hand that whole time, that would have been perfect.
We would have made them take a picture of that moment.
Oh, for sure. Something we didn't talk about either, which I think was a really fun exercise, is we wrote future letters to ourselves. Yes. We might have like briefly said this at the beginning of the episode.
It's the very first thing we did.
But yeah, it was the very first thing we did. So we got lunch and a cocktail, and we were sitting there with our mimosas, and I was like, okay, we're going to do this exercise. We're going to write a future letter to ourselves, and we're going to open it next year at this dual annual meeting. And so we sat there in silence and wrote ourselves a letter, and we put them in cute little branded envelopes. And next year I'm going to hold on to them, and next year we'll open them. And hopefully what we wrote to ourselves is what was able to happen in the year of 2025. Yeah. So we'll have to talk about that a little bit more next year after we open them. But I thought that was a really fun exercise because it really puts you in tune with yourself and like, what is it that you truly want for yourself within the next year.
Yeah. And we'll put all these little activities and exercises in the agenda template so you can take a peek at that, see which ones resonate with you. And I challenge you too, because I know I would look at the agenda and be like, I'm not doing that. Like, that's weird. I would challenge you not to have that perspective. Like, I am lucky in the fact that I have Courtney to be like, no, Abby, I don't care if you think this is dumb. We are doing this, which challenges me. And I think you have to challenge yourself, and which is why it can be really good to do this with a business partner who might be a little bit different than you. Like, you can challenge each other in those ways. So do that.
Yeah. And the last for stuff that we loved is October. Like, great months to do it. The weather in Minnesota, you can't beat in October. It's usually so lovely.
I think I'd even do September too.
Yeah,
like September, October,
early fall.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful outside, and it's just like the leaves are changing and it's a little crisper in the air, even though we had an 80-degree day on one of the days.
Yeah.
But, and you know, you're not at the end of the year. You're not jumping straight into the holiday season yet. It's just like a nice refresh time, I would say. And again, it goes back to that point where like there are things we can still work on in 2024, but we have a little bit of time before we hit 2025, so we don't feel like we have to hit the ground running with everything we just talked about in this meeting.
Yeah.
So it was a really great time of the year for an annual meeting.
Yeah, for sure. And so there's just a couple things that we do differently. Honestly, we were pretty pretty like pleasantly surprised at how well it went without having like so many learnings, I'd say. We talked about how we would probably stay in a different Airbnb. Yep. Not that we didn't love the Airbnb we stayed in. I think that experience worked great. It's just, I think every year we'll probably want to stay somewhere else.
Right. Yeah.
Just like as a new, fresh change of pace. And but I think we'd still do city.
Yeah.
And still do Airbnb versus hotel, because that gives us the flexibility to like bring our own meals and have a kitchen and like all of that. So yeah, but we would definitely probably still stay in the city.
I think so.
For now.
I think like when we do our bigger team retreat next year, we want to do something like that. Yeah. We want to get out of the city, whether it's like a cabin or something. But when it's just us two, I think we both have anxiety issues on different levels. And I think us like getting too far from our babies sometimes, like midweek, and we know our husbands are taking on that role, I think it just helps our anxiety a little bit. We know that we're 20-30 minutes away from home in case something
and
happens.
Our husbands are very capable.
They
and
are
totally fine, but still it like helps.
It's one less thing we have to worry about.
It's just like, it's a little bit of peace of mind, so not as stressful. We'd also probably plan in a little bit more time for the end when it comes to execution and how to get everything done. So we kind of did this, like we went to a coffee shop right before the massage and kind of planned out like, okay, here's when we're going to meet on this, and let's kind of plan that out. I think we probably could have done that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or like, just had it be a little bit more structured, just because you leave and you want to make sure like, yes, we don't have to do everything right away, but we also want to make sure that we're not like, oh, okay, now let's do it all December 25th. Like, well, that's Christmas. We're not going to do that, but you know, like we want to make sure we're not saving everything until the end of the year and we're spreading it out so it doesn't feel overwhelming. So we definitely planned out a few things. But we probably should have put a tiny bit more time into execution. Yeah, we did. We felt like we didn't quite have enough time to do that. So I think, more time for that for sure. Yeah.
And then day 2 of the annual meeting was a little heavy, probably heavier than it should have been. So we would probably shift a heavy thing to that first day and lighten up the second day a little bit, again, because we want to make sure that we have that creative space and energy for the entire meeting, like throughout all of it. And when you have a lot of heavy stuff on one day, you can easily get burnt out. I think after we did our brand strategy, we looked at each other. Abby looked at me and she's like, I'm kind of fried. Do you want to go to the hot tub? And I was like, yep, I'm glad you said that, because I don't know if my brain could do much more right now. So just making sure that you're weighing out your days kind of evenly, so you're not like focusing on all heavy stuff on one day.
Yeah, and not force it.
Correct, yeah.
So I think that's really important. So what did we miss? Is there anything we missed that we didn't share?
I don't think so. Like the stickies thing was funny. The cake was funny. Yoga was funny. I mean, we had a great time. It was fun. It was really fun. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was anything like random thing that we just like missed that was hilarious. But
well, if we think of it, we'll be sure to share it when this episode airs. So you can see. But otherwise, hop into the show notes and snag that agenda template. We put it in an easy doc that you can just kind of grab and update and modify yourself. So.
And like Abby said, you might see some things on that are like, nope, but you better do it.
Yes.
You gotta make room for some of that woo-woo stuff.
Do it. All right. Enjoy and tag us if you guys do plan your annual meeting and we want to see it and cheer you on.
Yes.
If you liked this episode, please be sure to share it with a friend and subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes dropping every Monday. Plus, if you haven't already, please leave us a review and don't hesitate to share any new episode ideas. We love hearing from you and creating this content for you. See you next week.